Hey there, welcome to part three of this series on scaling your online yoga business to $10,000 a month. So, over the last two episodes, we've covered brand positioning, your offer suite, and your messaging, and your sales process. And all of those things matter. They are the strategic foundation that makes scaling possible. But I'm going to be honest with you. You can have all of that in place and it still won't work if this final piece isn't there. This last shift is different from the others because it's not tactical. You can't just implement a framework or follow a step by step process. It's deeper than that. It's about who you're willing to become and how you're willing to show up. So today we're talking about leadership. And I know that word can feel loaded, especially in yoga culture. It can feel too corporate. But I'm not talking about being perfect or having everything figured out. I am talking about the willingness to show up consistently, to charge what your work is worth, and to step into the version of yourself who already has the business you're trying to build. This is the shift that ties everything else together. And it's also the one where I see the most resistance. Let me start with consistency because this is something I see a lot of yoga teachers struggle with. So I started writing a weekly blog post and sending out a weekly newsletter in 2016, and I never stopped. So 10 years ago, I started my podcast in 2020. And again, I never really stopped. I've published nearly 300 episodes since then. Every single week, I show up, not because I always feel like it, and not because every week is easy, but because I decided that's what I was going to do. And I've honored that commitment. And I can tell you from my experience that consistency has been one of the biggest factors in building my business to where it is now. When you show up every single week, you're building trust. People start to expect you, they start to look for you, they start to see you as someone who's serious about this, someone who isn't going anywhere, someone they can count on. And that trust is what allows people to move from casually following you to actually investing in your work. Consistency also creates momentum. Instead of starting from zero every time you post or send an email, you are building on what came before. Your content starts to compound, your audience grows, and your offers sell more predictably because people have had time to get to know you and trust you. And I want to be really clear on something. Showing up consistently when you're not seeing results yet is really, really hard. There were definitely weeks, especially in the beginning, where I wondered if anyone was even paying attention. I mean, nobody was waiting for me to talk about marketing for yoga teachers. But I kept going anyway because I understood that inconsistency was going to keep me stuck. When I look at the yoga teachers who successfully scaled their businesses, they're all consistent. They show up every week. They're not disappearing for months and then coming back when they feel inspired or when it's aligned. I mean, imagine you're a coffee shop and you put out a sign at the door, this morning, doesn't feel aligned, come back tomorrow for your coffee. You wouldn't be in business very long. That would feel really, really weird. I mean, that's what it means to show up every week, every day. So you want to be there reliably, doing what you said you would do. And when I look at the teachers who stay stuck, inconsistency is almost always part of the pattern. They're posting when they feel like it, sending emails every blue moon, and they're not building the trust and momentum that consistency creates. So if you're someone who struggles with showing up regularly, this is one of the most important shifts you can make. Not just posting more, It's not about being crazy and hustle and post 3 times a day on Instagram, but committing to a rhythm that works for you and your lifestyle and honoring that commitment even when it's hard. Now, consistency wasn't my struggle, right? I shared how I've been posting, like pretty much every single week for the last 10 years. I was consistent from the beginning, but I was playing small in other ways, especially with pricing. And this is also part of leadership. I couldn't see myself charging $1,000 for an online program or $10,000. That felt completely insane, right? I had all these stories in my head about what people would be willing to pay, what yoga teachers could afford, what was reasonable for online work. And those stories kept me stuck for a while. So I launched my first online course, I think for $200. Then I created another offer for $37. Gosh, I created a full website for $1,000, right? Now my last website project, I charged $15,000 and it was worth it. And my client was extremely, extremely happy. And what changed everything for me was being in the room with other business owners who were doing what I wanted to do. Seeing people charge premium prices for their programs and actually getting paid those prices. Watching them show up with confidence, not apologizing, not making themselves smaller. And yes, so I got support, I got encouragement, and I started to see what was actually possible, not just in theory, but in practice. Charging for what my work was really worth, what the transformation was really worth. So I decided to go for it. I raised my prices and I did it with the understanding that the transformation I was offering was worth it. And people paid. Not everyone. I have a lot of free content as well if you're not there yet, if you don't have the budget to work with me. But the right people did. The people who were ready for that level of support and who could see the value in what I was offering. That shift in how I valued my own work changed everything about my business because when you're charging premium prices, you don't need as many clients to hit your revenue goal. That was actually when my business, I started to see momentum and I could work with fewer people more deeply. They got better results. I had more spaciousness in my business. And I actually built the life I wanted instead of staying on that hamster wheel of displaying and creating low price offer after low priced offer. But I couldn't have made that shift on my own. I needed to be in rooms with people who were already doing it. And I needed support to work through the internal blocks that were keeping me from stepping into that next level. And to be honest, they never really completely go away. With every new offer, I'm thinking about my pricing and sitting with how does it feel inside? What is really going on? Is there resistance? Where is it coming from? Is it my own fears that is causing it? Is it like really that I believe um, that this is the wrong price, the right price? Underpricing doesn't feel good either. Underpricing feels like um, you're giving away too much for free. You're not going to be able to sell something successfully if you have that feeling. So it's about finding that right price that really sits right with you. So I see this all the time with yoga teachers I work with. They are undercharging. Is the history of that industry is as women we tend to undercharge, working in service, nurturing. You just want to help people. That all leads to undercharging, but you're not serving anybody when you undercharge your offers. If you're playing small with your pricing because you don't believe people will pay more, or you're worried about what other teachers will think, or you can't just see yourself as someone who charges premium prices, that belief is costing you, not just financially, but in terms of the impact you can have and the life you can build. So pricing working on your pricing mindset. It's an ongoing work where having support is so essential. And the other shift that had to happen for me was learning to embody the version of myself who already had the business I was building toward. When I was stuck at that lower revenue level, I was showing up in a way that reflected where I was, not where I wanted to be. I was tentative. I was hedging when I talked about my work and I was making myself smaller. And I realized I wasn't going to grow into confidence. I had to step into it first, and then the business would follow. You can't wait for confidence to show up. You need to have the courage to start anyway. So I started asking myself different questions. How would I show up if I already had consistent $10,000 or $20,000 months? What would I say? What stories would I tell? What would I stop apologizing for? Who would I work with? How would I talk about my work? What decisions would I make? And I started showing up that way. I stopped downplaying my experience and started sharing my opinions more clearly. I started taking a stand on things instead of trying to be, like palatable to everyone. And I started making decisions from a place of the business owner I was becoming, not the one I currently was. And that response that was immediate, right? So I immediately saw a difference. People started engaging differently and seeing me as someone who knew what she was talking about, and someone they could actually learn from, someone worth investing in. And this isn't about pretending to be someone you're not. It's about stepping into the fullest version of who you already are and letting that version lead, even before the external results are there to validate it. You can actually work with your inner voice here. So I did this a while back. I asked my inner voice, with what percentage am I showing up in my business? And it gave me a number. And then I asked, why am I not showing up fully? What is stopping me from showing up fully in my business? And that went to some really, really so deep, really fears and blocks that I was like, oh my God, that's it. And then I could start to work on that. That's what I want you to do, right? Um, okay, final thing I want to say is, for me, there's no plan B. I have to make this work. Final thing I want to say about this, about leadership. For me, there is no plan B. I have to make this work. And I don't mean that in a desperate way. I mean it in a committed way. I absolutely love having an online business. It's the best thing I've ever done. I love being able to live in Mallorca in Spain. I love being able to work from anywhere. I love being my own boss more than anything and making my own hours and not having to go to an office. I love the freedom and the flexibility and the life I've been able to build and the impact I'm making. I love working with amazing yoga teachers from all over the world. And that clarity, that commitment changes how you show up. Because when you know there's no backup plan, you are in this. When you know this is what you're doing, you show up differently. You make different decisions. You take the work more seriously. So I'm not saying you have to quit everything else and burn the ships, but I am saying that the level of commitment you bring to your business matters. If you're treating it like a side project, like something you do when you have time, like something you can walk away from if it gets hard, that shows up in your results. The yoga teachers I know who've built sustainable businesses are fully committed. They're not waiting to see if it works before they decide to go all in. They've already decided and they are showing up accordingly. And I want to come back to something I said earlier. I couldn't have made those shifts on my own. I needed to be in rooms with people who were already doing what I wanted to do. I needed support to work through the blocks that were keeping me stuck. And I needed someone to see what I couldn't see and to call me forward into the next version of myself. So you can try to do all this alone, but it's going to be so much harder and it's definitely going to take longer. When you're stuck in your own patterns, it's really difficult to see what's actually holding you back. You keep making the same mistakes without realizing it. And you let your fears and stories run the show because there's no one there to help you work through them. You stay small with your pricing because you don't have anyone around you, like us questioning you or showing you what's possible. That's why the right support matters. Not because you're not capable and you can't get great results with ChatGPT as your business coach or Claude, but because having people around you who can see your blind spots, who can hold you accountable, who can help you step into that next level, that changes everything. So that's the fifth shift, leadership. It's about showing up consistently, even when you're not seeing results yet, because that consistency is what creates trust and momentum over time. It's about charging what your work is worth instead of playing small with your pricing. And it's about embodying the version of yourself who already has what you're building toward. And it's about being in the right rooms with the right support to actually make this happen. This is the hardest shift because it's not tactical. You can't just implement it and check it off your to do list. It requires you to look at how you're showing up and be willing to do something different. But it's also the most important shift because all the strategy in the world won't matter if you're not willing to step into the role of leader that your business needs you to be. You don't have to have it all figured out before you can move forward. You just have to be willing to commit. All right. So that's what I wanted to cover in this series. We've talked about brand positioning, your offer suite, your messaging, your sales process, and your leadership. Those are the five shifts that have to happen when you're scaling your online yoga business to consistent 10K months and more. And if you're feeling stuck, like whatever you do, nothing really moves the needle, applications are open for the Blissful Biz Mastermind. This is where we work through all of these shifts together over 6 months. This is the room where it becomes real. There are only 6 spots. We start March 2nd for this cohort. And after that, you can get on the wait list for the next cohort, which will probably be 2027. So don't miss your spot now. You can learn more and apply at susannereiche.com/mastermind. And if this series has been helpful for you, I'd love to hear about it. Send me a message or drop a comment on Instagram or YouTube. I read every single thing. All right, that's it for today. I talk to you soon. Bye for now.